You didn't arrive at this moment by accident. Something in you has been moving toward it for years, through every intuitive nudge, every unanswered question, every moment where reality felt thinner than it should. And now that you're here, you can feel it almost immediately. There is a quiet recognition inside you, a sense that what you're about to hear isn't information, but memory. Something you've always known, but never had the language to articulate. This is the unmistakable signature of deeper awareness coming online. It begins with a simple realization. You are not a small observer wandering through a massive universe. The universe is appearing inside your consciousness. From the first moment your eyes opened, everything you encountered, color, movement, sensation, sound, emerged inside the field of awareness that has been watching since the beginning. You have never touched the external world directly. You've only touched the perception of it within consciousness. You have never heard a sound out there. You've only heard the interpretation of vibration within your awareness. Every experience you've ever had has taken place in the same inner space. The presence observing these words right now. Yet most people never question this because they're too identified with the mind's activity, too entangled in the voice narrating their life, too lost in the stream of thoughts to notice the awareness underneath. But something in you is different. You've always sensed there was more to your existence than the identity you perform. You've felt the subtle pull of a deeper truth, the feeling that life is happening through you as much as it's happening around you. You've noticed moments of intuition, moments of synchronicity, moments where inner knowing appears before logic catches up. These are not coincidences, they are reminders, small fractures in the illusion that point back to the awareness behind your experience. And once you begin noticing this awareness, everything else starts to shift. You can observe your thoughts, which means you are not the thoughts. You can feel emotions move through you, which means you are not the emotions. You can sense the body's weight, temperature, and breath, which means you are not limited to the body. Something quieter, more constant, more expansive is doing the observing, that something is consciousness itself. And the closer you get to it, the more you realize it does not age, it does not react, and it does not break. It has remained unchanged through every version of you. You have outgrown beliefs, identities, fears, and desires, but the awareness watching those changes has never shifted. It is the only stable point in your entire life. As you rest in this recognition, even for a moment, the world begins to behave differently. Reality stops appearing as a fixed external structure and starts behaving like something responsive, participatory, almost fluid. You begin to notice how your inner state alters your outer experience in ways you can't deny. Clarity brings clarity, fear distorts perception, gratitude softens circumstance, intention seems to ripple outward and reorganize events. It's as if reality is mirroring the quality of your attention, and in a way it always has. These glimpses are the first signs of quantum consciousness. They reveal that awareness is not a passive witness but an active force interacting with the fabric of reality. When you shift your inner frequency, the world you encounter shifts with it. Not metaphorically, mechanically. This is why certain days feel aligned and others feel chaotic. Why some decisions flow and others resist. Why your perception can transform a situation without anything externally changing. The observer is not separate from the observed. They are part of one continuous field. And once you see this, a deeper question naturally rises. If consciousness shapes the world you experience, what exactly gives it that power? Why does awareness influence what becomes real? Why does your inner state seem to reorganize the field around you? And why do moments of heightened presence, intuition, and clarity feel like they're tapping into something far greater than the thinking mind. These questions are not philosophical. They are the threshold. They pull you into the space where science and direct experience begin to overlap, where the quantum world stops being a distant scientific concept and starts revealing itself as the architecture behind your awareness. You can feel that pull right now, that sense that something underneath the surface of your life is shifting into focus. Because the moment you acknowledge that consciousness participates in the formation of reality, a much larger truth begins to reveal itself. Consciousness behaves in ways that mirror the quantum world itself. And this is where everything becomes unexpectedly simple. You don't need equations or complicated terminology to understand quantum consciousness. You only need to see the mechanics that have always been hiding inside your own experience. Because the instant you understand why consciousness can shape reality, your entire relationship with perception changes. Intuition makes sense, synchronicity makes sense, the way your emotional state influences outcomes makes sense, the way your attention seems to bend the direction of your life makes sense. Your inner world stops feeling separate from the outer world because they were never separate at all. You're beginning to sense it. Your awareness is not ordinary. It shares the same strange properties that define the quantum world: superposition, possibility, interconnectedness, and the ability to collapse potential into form. And once you recognize those parallels clearly, everything you thought was mysterious about consciousness becomes coherent. Let it dissolve into the next question, rising naturally inside you. What makes consciousness quantum? What gives it the ability to hold possibility, to influence outcomes, to entangle with others, to reshape the moment simply by observing it? Stay with that question, because the answer isn't outside you. It's already emerging now as we step directly into the simple, elegant foundations that reveal why consciousness behaves the way it does and why it has always been quantum. The moment you ask what makes consciousness quantum, something begins to shift behind your perception. It's as if reality itself leans in, because this question opens the doorway that most people never step through. The realization that the same principles governing particles, waves, and fields are quietly operating inside your awareness. And once you see this clearly, everything becomes easier to understand, not mystical, not abstract, simply obvious in a way that feels like remembering instead of learning. At the heart of quantum physics lies a simple observation. Nothing exists as a definite thing until it is measured. Particles behave like waves of possibility, spread out across space, holding countless potential states at once. And this is called superposition. And what collapses that cloud of possibility into a single outcome is observation, awareness, the act of measurement. In other words, reality becomes specific when consciousness interacts with it. This is the first clue. This is the moment where quantum physics and your lived experience begin to overlap, because your consciousness behaves in the exact same way. At any given moment, your mind also holds multiple possibilities, multiple interpretations, multiple emotional responses, multiple timelines you could step into. And it is your awareness, your inner attention, that collapses one of those possibilities into experience. You can feel this directly when your perception flips, when a belief shifts, an insight lands, or a new meaning suddenly forms. A world of internal options narrows into one lived reality, just as a quantum wave narrows into a particle. Awareness does the collapsing, but superposition is only the beginning. The second principle that connects consciousness to the quantum world is the observer effect. Most people misunderstand this. They think it means your thoughts control everything, which is inaccurate and simplistic. The truth is far more elegant. The observer effect states that the presence of a conscious observer changes the outcome of what is being observed, not through force, through interaction, through attention, through presence. And this is why experiments show different results when particles are watched versus when they are left alone. And if you look honestly at your own life, you'll see the same pattern. The way you observe a situation determines how it unfolds for you, not because the situation changes, but because the internal state of the observer shifts the reality they are capable of perceiving. Two people can look at the same moment and collapse completely different experiences. Your inner frequency acts as the measurement device. And yet even this is not the most mysterious aspect of the quantum world. That honor belongs to entanglement, the phenomenon in which particles become linked so deeply that what happens to one instantly affects the other, even across vast distances. It defies classical logic. It ignores space. It transcends time. And the more you understand consciousness, the more you realize that your awareness works the same way. This is why intuition feels instantaneous. This is why you can sense someone's emotional state before they speak. This is why synchronicities appear not as coincidences, but as reflections of an inner connection with the field around you. Consciousness is not contained inside your skull. It is a non-local phenomenon, meaning it is not limited to space or time. Your thoughts can be local, your memories can be local, but the awareness watching them is not. You have felt this countless times in moments of clarity, in profound stillness, or in deep connection with another person. These moments reveal the entangled nature of consciousness. All of this leads to the fourth and most important principle, the quantum field. Beneath the visible world, beneath matter and energy, beneath particles and waves, there exists a unified field of pure potential, a field that contains information, possibility, and the blueprint of everything that can exist. Quantum physics describes it as the foundation of reality. Mystics describe it as the ground of being, different languages, same truth. And consciousness interacts with this field effortlessly because consciousness is made of the same essence. When you think, feel, imagine, or intend, you are not generating those experiences from inside the brain. You are tuning into the field. You are selecting frequencies. You are drawing information from the same invisible matrix that holds stars, atoms, memories, and meaning. And this is why insights arrive fully formed, as if they dropped into your mind from nowhere. This is why creativity feels like receiving instead of inventing. This is why meditation doesn't create peace. It tunes you into the frequency of a field that was peaceful all along. Consciousness is not a byproduct of biology. Biology is the instrument through which consciousness becomes perceivable. You are not a receiver of random chemical processes. You are a participant in a quantum field that responds to coherence, clarity, and attention. And the more you understand this, the more the mechanics of your inner world begin to make sense. When your thoughts are scattered, your consciousness is in a state of decoherence, just like quantum particles that lose their unified behavior when they are disturbed. When your emotions are contradictory, your signal becomes noisy, and your experience feels chaotic. When your mind and heart align, when intention and emotion move in the same direction, your consciousness enters coherence, just like a quantum system stabilizing into a clear pattern. And when that happens, the field responds differently. Events align, opportunities appear, synchronicities cluster, not because you are forcing reality, but because your frequency has become stable enough to interact with possibility in a cleaner, more organized way. You've felt this before, everyone has. Those moments where everything flows effortlessly, where timing feels perfect, where your inner clarity seems to magnetize the exact experience you needed. Those moments are glimpses into the quantum nature of consciousness. They are reminders that your awareness is woven from the same fabric as the field it observes. You are not separate from reality. You are entangled with it. What makes consciousness quantum is not metaphor, it's mechanics. It holds multiple possibilities until you choose. It collapses reality through perception. It connects across distance and time. It interacts with a unified field of energy and information. And the more you stabilize your awareness, the more clearly you can feel the field responding to you. And yet, as profound as these principles are, they reveal only half the truth. Because if consciousness is quantum in its behavior, then it must also be quantum in its identity. Which means the question is no longer just how consciousness interacts with the field, but who you truly are within it. Not the personality, not the mind, not even the observer, but the awareness shaping the observer itself. And when you see that clearly, something begins to shift in the core of your being. Because the next revelation isn't about physics at all, it's about you, and the moment you understand how your identity functions inside a quantum field, the boundary between self and reality dissolves in ways you've always sensed, but never fully understood. The moment you see that consciousness behaves according to the same rules that govern the quantum world, a deeper realization begins to rise inside you, a realization that everything you experience is shaped not only by what you observe, but by the one who is observing. This is where the quantum principles stop being concepts and start becoming mirrors, because the observer effect isn't just something happening in a laboratory, it is happening in you, through you, as you. Every moment of your life is an unconscious experiment in perception and collapse, possibility and choice, potential and form. You've already felt this in subtle ways. When your inner world is chaotic, the outer world reflects that chaos. When your mind is clear, circumstances seem to align effortlessly. When you expect resistance, you meet resistance. When you expect connection, people respond differently. These shifts are not coincidences, they are the signature of the observer effect playing out in the human psyche. Awareness functions as a measurement device, and what you measure becomes your reality. But to understand this more deeply, you must look at the mechanics of your own perception. At any given moment, your consciousness receives far more information than your mind can process. Infinite data points flood your senses, yet your awareness selects only a fraction, based on identity, belief, expectation, memory, emotion, and the vibrational tone of your inner state. This selection process collapses your version of reality. And the most profound part is that you don't simply observe a world, you continually participate in shaping it through how you observe. Nothing demonstrates this more clearly than your own interpretations. Two people can witness the same event and experience entirely different realities. One sees threat, the other sees opportunity. One feels rejected, the other feels liberated. One believes fear is unfolding against them, the other believes life is communicating with them. The event doesn't change, the field doesn't change, only the observer changes, only the lens shifts, and when the lens shifts, the entire world rearranges around it. And this is the psychological dimension of quantum collapse. Your consciousness doesn't just collapse possibilities out there, it collapses possibilities in here. Your beliefs narrow the spectrum of what you can perceive. Your emotions tune the frequency of the world you meet. Your inner narrative determines which aspects of the field become visible to you. And this is why the same reality can feel completely different depending on who you are while observing it. You've experienced this phenomenon countless times without realizing it. When you were in love, the world felt luminous, safe, inviting. When you were grieving, everything felt heavy, muted, distant. When you felt confident, opportunities seemed abundant. When you felt insecure, the same environment felt threatening. These shifts weren't produced by changes in the external world, They were produced by changes in the observer. And this is the truth most people never see. That identity is the hidden variable shaping their reality. Your self-image is a frequency. Your expectations are frequencies. Your emotions are frequencies. Your worldview is a frequency. And these frequencies act like measurements, collapsing the wave of possibility around you into a matching form. This is why patterns repeat until you change the identity experiencing them. Life isn't mirroring what you want. It's mirroring who you are willing to be. The quantum field responds not to desire, but to coherence. And coherence arises when your thoughts, emotions, and identity vibrate in the same direction. When who you believe you are matches what you expect from reality. When your internal signal is unified instead of fragmented. The clearer the observer, the clearer the collapse. The more organized your inner world, the more organized your external world becomes. And the moment you begin to see this, a new layer of awareness opens. You realize that your inner state isn't just influencing your life, it is composing it. But there is something deeper. The observer effect also reveals why transformation often feels instantaneous. There are moments in life when you suddenly understand something you've carried for years. Moments where forgiveness dissolves decades of resentment. Moments where clarity replaces confusion in a single breath. Moments where an old identity drops away as effortlessly as shedding a layer of skin. These shifts feel sudden because they are. An identity collapses and a new version of you observes the world. The field responds immediately because the observer has changed. This is why spiritual awakenings feel like waking up in a different reality without moving an inch. Nothing external has shifted, yet everything feels different. Light seems sharper, the air feels alive, your relationships feel transparent, your motivations become clearer. The world hasn't changed, the observer has. A new measurement device is perceiving the same field, and the collapse reflects the new vibration. You've known this in your own life every time you became someone new, when you stepped out of an old relationship, an old version of yourself, an old story you had been carrying. The world after that moment wasn't the same as the world before it. The difference wasn't circumstance, it was consciousness. You were observing from a new level of awareness, and that awareness was interacting with reality differently. This realization leads to a profound truth. The observer is not just shaping the world, the observer is shaping the self. Consciousness observes itself into identity. Every belief you hold about who you are collapses a certain version of you into existence. Every memory you revisit reinforces a particular timeline. Every label you claim acts as a measurement limiting the range of your potential. The more tightly you hold on to an identity, the more tightly the field collapses into that identity's world. But here is the liberation. Identity is not fixed. It is fluid. It is a wave, not a particle. It shifts with awareness. It changes with perception. It dissolves the moment you stop measuring yourself through old filters. This is why self-awareness is so powerful. It interrupts the automatic collapse and reopens possibility. When you observe yourself without judgment, without clinging, without resistance, your identity expands. New versions of you become accessible. New realities become perceivable. New timelines begin to vibrate into alignment. And as this becomes clearer, you start to recognize the quiet intelligence beneath every moment of your life, the challenges that forced you inward, the synchronicities that redirected your attention, the moments of stillness that revealed something deeper. These were not random events, they were interactions between consciousness and the field, between the observer and the observed. Life has always been speaking to you in the language of resonance, and yet even this realization is only part of the truth. Because if the observer shapes reality through perception, then there must be a deeper layer shaping the observer itself, something beneath identity, beneath belief, beneath thought. And once you reach that layer, the quantum field stops feeling like something you influence and begins to feel like something you are. This is where we step into the quantum self, the vibrational identity that determines which world you walk into and why your frequency is the true architecture of your reality. As you settle into the realization that the observer is not passive, but actively shaping the world you step into, another truth begins to emerge, one that reshapes everything you thought you understood about who you are. Because if consciousness collapses reality through perception, then what collapses you? What determines the version of yourself you wake up as each day? What shapes your personality, your choices, your fears, your desires, your expectations? What decides which timelines are even available to you? The answer is startling in its simplicity. Your identity is a frequency, not a static personality, not a fixed psychological construct, not the story you've been telling yourself or the roles you've been performing. Identity, at its core, is vibration, a pattern of energy, memory, belief, and emotional resonance that your consciousness temporarily stabilizes into a me so that it can navigate the world. But beneath that pattern, you are something far more fluid, far more expansive, far more quantum. Your sense of self is not who you are. It is who you are in this moment of observation. And just like any quantum system, the moment you stop measuring yourself through old beliefs, old stories, or old emotional imprints, the identity built from them begins to dissolve. This is why shifts in self-awareness feel like waking up from a dream you didn't know you were in. The wave of you begins to re-emerge the moment the mind stops collapsing it into the same narrow form. You've felt this before in glimpses, moments where your entire identity seemed to expand, when you traveled somewhere unfamiliar and suddenly felt more alive, when you experienced loss and realized your values were shifting, when a moment of insight made old limitations feel irrelevant, when a single conversation changed the direction of your life. These weren't random changes, they were transitions between identities, quantum jumps in self-perception that altered the way you interacted with the field. Identity is not a container, it's a lens, and the lens you look through determines what you are able to perceive. A fearful identity will collapse a fearful world. A hopeful identity will collapse a hopeful world. A limited identity will collapse a limited set of options. A coherent identity, a self aligned in thought, emotion, belief, and intention, collapses a reality that reflects that coherence. The universe does not respond to who you pretend to be. It responds to the frequency you are broadcasting through your state of being. And this is where the hidden architecture of the self becomes visible. Identity is built not from logic, but from repetition. Repeated emotional patterns, repeated interpretations, repeated conclusions about who you are allowed to be. These patterns imprint themselves into your nervous system, shaping the way you experience the world. A belief becomes a lens becomes a filter becomes a frequency, and that frequency becomes the version of reality the quantum field reflects back to you. This is why certain life patterns repeat until you shift something fundamental within yourself. It's not punishment, it's resonance. The field can only interact with the signal you emit. When the signal changes, the pattern collapses. When the identity upgrades, the reality that mirrors it must reorganize. This is not positive thinking, it is mechanics. But identity doesn't only shape perception, it shapes possibility. The stories you hold about yourself determine which timelines are available to you. If you believe you are undeserving, you will never see opportunities that contradict that belief. If you believe your intuition is unreliable, you will collapse versions of reality where you doubt your own inner knowing. If you believe life happens to you, you will meet the world through the lens of powerlessness. You're not manifesting these outcomes by force. You're perceiving them because your identity makes them visible. The quantum field is infinite, but you only experience the slice of infinity that aligns with the frequency of the self you are embodying. And once you understand this, a deeper truth begins to take shape. Identity is optional. Identity is chosen. Identity is sculpted by the quality of your awareness. And the more aware you become, the more your identity stops collapsing unconsciously and starts reorganizing itself through intention. This is why awakening often feels like stepping out of an old skin. You no longer resonate with the beliefs that once defined you. You no longer fit inside the limits that once felt familiar. You no longer see yourself through the same emotional architecture that shaped your past. Something loosens, something expands, something within you stops accepting the identity that was built from survival, fear, repetition, or conditioning. And as the identity softens, the self that had been collapsed into it begins to re-emerge. This emergence is not the creation of a new self. It is the unveiling of the self that has always existed beneath the layers. The quantum self, fluid, spacious, connected to the field, capable of accessing countless versions of reality because it is not confined by the stories the mind has been carrying. The quantum self doesn't force reality. It tunes into it. It interacts with it. It collaborates with it. And because it is not limited by a narrow identity, it has access to frequencies of intuition, creativity, coherence, and guidance that the old self could never perceive. This is why people who experience deep identity shifts often describe feeling like they've returned to themselves. They didn't become someone new. They stopped collapsing themselves into someone small. They stopped observing themselves through the lens of limitation. They stopped projecting past pain into future timelines. They stopped believing the version of themselves that the world had mirrored back to them. And the moment they stopped measuring themselves through that old lens, a new identity formed. One that felt more authentic, more empowered, more aligned. You have felt this too. Every moment of clarity, every flash of intuition, every inner expansion was your quantum self becoming visible. These moments didn't appear randomly, they appeared because you momentarily observed yourself without distortion. And in that moment, the field responded differently. Identity and reality moved into coherence. This is the revelation most people never reach. You do not attract what you want, you collapse what you are. Your identity, your true underlying frequency, is the architecture through which your reality takes shape. And when that identity becomes coherent, everything around you begins to align in ways that feel effortless, synchronous, and meaningful. But identity alone is not the final layer. Beneath the self, beneath the story, beneath the vibration of who you believe you are, there is something deeper still, a space where consciousness stops being personal and begins to reveal its unity with everything it has ever observed. And once you touch this layer, the quantum field no longer feels like something you interact with, it feels like something you are inseparable from. This is where coherence becomes creation. This is where the heart and mind synchronize into the frequency of the field. And this is where we step into the most practical and powerful aspect of quantum consciousness. How emotional resonance, somatic alignment, and inner coherence shape the world you experience. As the quantum self comes into view, a deeper recognition begins to unfold, one that reveals why some shifts in your life feel effortless, while others feel impossible, why certain intentions seem to magnetize results while others dissolve before they even begin. It all comes down to one principle so fundamental, so elegant, that once you see it clearly, you can never unsee it. The field responds to coherence, not effort, not desire, not willpower, coherence. Coherence is what happens when your thoughts, emotions, nervous system, and identity move in the same direction. It is the moment when there is no internal contradiction, no hidden resistance, no split between what you think you want and what you actually believe is possible. It is alignment made tangible. It is frequency made deliberate. It is the tuning of your entire being into a signal strong enough to interact with the quantum field cleanly. You've experienced this in fleeting moments, when clarity settles into your chest like an exhale, when intuition feels louder than your thoughts, when your actions feel guided rather than forced. These moments feel different not because the world changed, but because you changed. Your internal oscillation synchronized, and your consciousness entered a state of coherence. In that state, the field responds, paths open, timing aligns, synchronicities cluster. The world seems to organize itself around your inner clarity because coherence is the language the field understands. This is where the power of the heart becomes undeniable. The heart is not just an organ pumping blood, it is the most magnetically dominant structure in the human body, broadcasting an electromagnetic field measurable several feet beyond your skin. And that field shifts dramatically based on emotion. When you feel anxiety, frustration, or fear, the heart's rhythm becomes jagged and chaotic, a state known as incoherence. When you feel appreciation, compassion, or deep presence, the heart enters a smooth, harmonious pattern, coherence. The nervous system reorganizes, the brain waves stabilize, the entire body shifts into an integrated, unified signal. And here's where it becomes extraordinary. The state of your heart changes the quality of information you can access from the field. When your heart enters coherence, your intuition sharpens, creativity expands, perception widens, the noise of overthinking quiets, the mind becomes a receiver rather than a generator, tuning into frequencies of insight that were always present but previously inaccessible. This is not metaphor, it is physiology, it is physics, it is resonance. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to the electromagnetic signature carried by your state of being, and your state of being is determined not by thought alone, but by the harmony or disharmony between your mind and heart. If your thoughts say, "I am worthy," but your emotions say, "I'm afraid," the field receives the fear. If your mind says, "I will succeed," but your nervous system contracts with doubt, the field receives the contraction. And if your desires aim toward expansion, but your identity is still tied to old limitations, the field mirrors the limitation. Conscious creation requires internal coherence. Without it, desire becomes static, scattered signals sent into the field that collapse into inconsistent outcomes. But when coherence is present, intention becomes concentrated, stable, powerful. You are no longer sending mixed frequencies into the field. You are broadcasting a singular signal, and reality bends toward the strength of that signal effortlessly. And you already know what this feels like. Think of a moment where you knew something was meant for you, not hoped, not wanted, knew. That knowing carried no tension. It was quiet, steady, grounded. In those moments, you weren't forcing anything, you weren't anxious, you weren't negotiating with the universe. You were coherent, and the universe responded. This is why gratitude is such a powerful frequency, not because it's positive, but because it brings the heart and mind into immediate harmony. Gratitude dissolves internal resistance softens the nervous system, and stabilizes the emotional field. The moment gratitude arises, coherence begins, and coherence draws in experiences aligned with the same frequency of openness and abundance. But coherence is not achieved through suppression. You cannot bypass fear, control emotion, or pretend to be calm and expect coherence to arise. Incoherent emotions are not mistakes, they are signals. They reveal where your inner world is not yet aligned. When you meet these states with awareness instead of resistance, something subtle but profound happens. The emotion begins to reorganize itself. The field of energy around the heart becomes less jagged. The breath deepens. Space opens. In this openness, coherence becomes possible again. This is the paradox of emotional work. Healing does not come from forcing yourself out of incoherence, but from allowing incoherent energy to soften through awareness. Every emotion you acknowledge becomes coherent. Every emotion you resist becomes noise. The field responds to your inner truth, not your performance. Coherence is authenticity in motion. And once you begin working with your internal state consciously, you stop trying to manifest outcomes and start tuning into the version of reality that already holds them. You stop trying to control the future and start aligning with the timeline that matches your frequency. In this state, creation becomes less about effort and more about resonance. You don't chase, you attract. You don't demand, you synchronize. You don't push, you tune. This is why so many people experience quantum leaps when they finally release an old identity. The moment they stop collapsing themselves into who they used to be, their field expands, their coherence increases, new timelines become available, and the universe meets them with opportunities that would have been invisible to the old self. Coherence is the bridge between identity and creation. It is the method by which the quantum self interacts with the field. It is the tuning mechanism that determines what becomes perceivable, what becomes probable, and what becomes real. And the more consistently you enter coherence, the more your life begins to reflect the deeper intelligence already within you. But even coherence is not the final layer, because beneath the personal self, beneath the identity, beneath the emotional landscape, there is a deeper foundation, a unified presence that has been silently holding all of your experiences, a presence that is not influenced by thought or emotion, a presence that does not come and go, a presence that is the field itself looking through your eyes. And when you touch this presence directly, coherence becomes effortless, creation becomes natural, and the boundary between you and the universe dissolves into something so intimate, so obvious, that you wonder how you ever believed you were separate at all. This is the return to the unified field within, the recognition that consciousness is not interacting with reality. Consciousness is reality. As coherence begins to steady your inner world and the quantum self starts to reveal its quiet architecture, something deeper rises from beneath every insight you've had so far, something that doesn't expand your understanding but dissolves the need to understand at all. It is the recognition that consciousness is not simply influencing the quantum field. It is arising from the same essence as the field itself. And the moment this becomes more than an idea, the boundary you once assumed existed between you and reality begins to fall away. You start to sense that the awareness watching your thoughts is the same awareness holding the stars. The presence noticing your breath is the same presence vibrating inside every atom. The pulse in your chest is not separate from the pulse of existence. It is the local expression of a universal rhythm that has been beating long before you were born, and will continue long after the body returns to dust. You are not attuning yourself to the field. You are remembering that you have always been a wave inside its ocean. And as this realization deepens, the relationship you once had with life begins to shift. Reality stops appearing as something you must manage, control, predict, or negotiate. It begins to feel intimate, responsive, alive. You no longer see the universe as an external environment you are moving through, but as a living presence expressing itself through your consciousness. The world is no longer a stage, it becomes a mirror, one that reflects the quality of your being rather than the content of your thoughts. This changes everything, because once you recognize yourself as a localized expression of the unified field, you stop trying to fix the world by rearranging external conditions and begin shaping it by reorganizing your internal frequency. You stop trying to manifest and start remembering. You stop chasing signs and start receiving them. You stop forcing outcomes and start aligning with the timelines that resonate with who you are becoming. This is the moment where the illusion of separation dissolves, not through philosophy, but through direct perception. You feel the field in your breath. You sense it in your awareness. You recognize it in every moment of stillness, clarity, intuition, and synchronicity. And the more you rest in this recognition, the more natural life becomes. Not easier, not always softer, but truer. You begin to move from a deeper intelligence that was always present beneath the noise of the mind. This intelligence is not separate from you, it is you. It is the part of you that knows without thinking, the part that senses direction before evidence arrives, the part that chooses paths that feel aligned, even when they make no logical sense, the part that feels guidance in the form of resonance, expansion, or silence. It is not mystical, it is not spiritual performance, it is the unified field communicating with itself through you. And once you begin to trust this, the world becomes a conversation rather than a challenge. Every coincidence becomes communication. Every emotion becomes information. Every desire becomes a signal. Every moment of resistance becomes an invitation to refine the internal frequency you are sending into the field. You become less reactive, more aware, more deliberate. You start living from the inside out rather than the outside in. You begin to understand why your intuition has always felt like a deeper knowing, why clarity arrives when the mind becomes still, why love reorganizes your entire vibration, why fear distorts perception, why inner peace feels like standing inside your true nature. Because at the most fundamental level, consciousness and the field are not two separate phenomena. They are one continuous presence expressing itself in countless forms. Your awareness is the universe recognizing itself through human lens. And as this recognition integrates, something subtle but profound begins to occur. You stop seeking awakening and start embodying it. You stop trying to reach a higher state and start noticing that the higher state has been the awareness watching you the entire time. You stop asking the universe for signs and start seeing that every breath is a sign. Every thought appears in the same field. Every emotion rises and falls within the same presence. Every experience is happening inside the same vast awareness that has no edges, no boundary, no location. The seeker dissolves, the search softens, and what remains is the quiet brilliance of consciousness knowing itself. This is the return to the center, not as a destination, but as the realization that you never left. You were never separate. You were never outside the field. You were the field, dreaming of separation so that the path back to unity could become a revelation. And now, as you stand at the close of this journey, notice what has shifted in you. Not because something new was added, but because something old was removed, the illusion that you are anything less than the field expressing itself as you. You don't need to force this understanding. Simply breathe into it. Let it settle into your awareness the way a wave settles back into the ocean. You are not touching the unified field. You are the unified field touching itself through experience. And as you carry this recognition into your life, remember that you are never seeking the truth of consciousness. You are remembering the truth of yourself. Because you were never a separate mind looking out at a universe. You were the universe looking back. And now you know.